Hey, what's up? Well, welcome to the space room. I have a moment to make a video, which, once I get videos in the queue, I have to kind of, start having things come out later than they're actually made, because you can't release one until you release another. And so, yeah, well, Christmas is officially over, and I think I'm going to, um, release a song, and it's almost like um I can have as many songs, if not more, as my strong feelings about various topics. And if you consider that I could make multiple songs, out of the same topic, that could lead to a lot of songs. And so I think I'm going to, release a song about putting away Christmas stuff. And what I want to talk about in this video is a number of things. First of all, these elves didn't do me much good. For Christmas, it's like I have all this Christmas stuff, and it's like you can only put out so much Christmas stuff, which is kind of what I was alluding to in that song is like, what good is all that Christmas stuff when you can only enjoy it for 1 month out of the year, and only if you remember to put it out or you have a need for it, you know. Like a prime example is this popcorn can with a train on it. I mean, sure, that's nice, to have a pretty picture of a train, like the one I hear right now, with Santa Claus and a snowman. But for the vast majority of a year, it's irrelevant and it's out of place. And I just wish that other times of the year would be equally commercialized, but then of course they would also be irrelevant and out of place for the majority of the year, so you would just end up with four different, like if you had winter, spring, summer, and fall decorations, instead of just winter and to a lesser extent fall, you would just end up with 4 times as much stuff that is really only relevant for a certain part of the year. So what I want to talk about in this video is a number of things. About throwing up. I mean, people, who have an issue with vomiting are kind of out of luck because, there's this beautiful song, Say You Won't Let Go by James Arthur, and I could listen to it all day long. It mentions throwing up, about how they drank too much. He held her hair back while she was throwing up, and that made it rhyme, but it's just a prime example of why I don't drink alcohol. And I'm a proud teetotaler for the most part. I mean, rarely do I ever find an occasion to drink. And with money being as tight as it is, those occasions are becoming fewer and further between every year. This is my life. I don't even get to eat out. Yeah, it's just very sad, the extent to which I cannot even eat out. If I had enough money to spend on alcohol, I could actually have even more fun, going out to eat. But the sad reality of my life, which I never saw coming years ago, is that, that I don't even have money for food from out, let alone alcoholic beverages. And I think that a lot of alcoholics really are boomers, baby boomers that are still living in an outdated world, in which they develop those dependencies and those cravings. They're living in an outdated world where things were a lot cheaper. And so you had what was called a disposable income that you could blow on alcohol. And I'll always, and they taught their kids somehow that it was some kind of a rite of passage, that you weren't really a 21-year-old and up unless you were interested in alcohol or drank alcohol or knew a lot about alcohol, and it's a bunch of crap, because it's like, I mean, you can live without alcohol. And I don't want alcohol in my body, because I feel like I already have enough trouble functioning in this world, as you probably figured out, with my mental issues, my attention deficit. I mean, I already have a deficit, which is what that word or that condition means. You have a deficit in your ability to pay attention. And I have a lot of mental issues. And so I do not need to pour alcohol on the mix. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to further impair myself and my cognitive abilities with booze. And, that's why my mom, has always been my preferred parent. She has always been, the one that I would prefer to spend the rest of one parent's life with if I could choose my destiny. Because she does come out and say it, that alcohol is stupid. That I don't care if 99.99999%, I don't care if everybody else in this world but me and her, thinks alcohol is cool. Alcohol is, everybody else does it, so you may as well just be like everybody else. Well, you know what? I was born fortunate to have a name that sets me apart. I mean, there is nothing I could ever do to fit in short of changing my name, which is the real reason, I've always, fantasized about living as male. It's not, well, I mean, yes, that would come with a lot of privilege. But for me, the most exciting thing about being male was never going to be, the chest surgery, although that would be very important. It was not even really the voice change on testosterone, though that's about the only effect that I would look forward to, as someone with hair that would probably be falling out by my age. It's always been, the most tear-jerking moment of, now I'm finally who I was meant to be, or who I was born to be, would have always been the name change. I mean, that is the honest to God truth, that, changing my name would have been the one most important thing that I would have ever looked forward to, and changing my gender or sex or whatever you call it. And unfortunately, the name that I had picked out is even less common than the one that I was given as a female. So it's like I'd just be going, from one uncommon name to another and still never fit in. Because, that king in the book of Daniel was just not a John or a David or a Mark or a Matthew or, an Adam. He just wasn't a very popular character that people name their sons after. That's why that character on Sofia the First, it's like his name begins with the same letter making the same sound that I would have wanted my male name and my new name to have. You know what I'm saying? It's like if I could have lived as a male, my name would begin not only with the same letter as that character, but it would also make the same sound. Unlike, other, most names, like Carl and, names that begin with a hard C. So yeah, it's like my name set me apart. My name absolved me from ever trying to fit in. I had no hope of fitting in because of my name. And, because of the beautiful meaning that my name has. And, I never had any hope of fitting in. Therefore, I never tried. And so even if everybody else in this world drinks alcohol, has gotten drunk to the point of vomiting, maybe even gotten drunk to the point of blacking out, I don't care. I really don't care. Fitting in was never a reason to compromise my health and my dignity and my criminal record when I was under 21 and various other things. My life behind the wheel, fitting in. Yeah, I guess, it was a blessing that I couldn't fit in, between my unusual name and being red-shirted meaning, I graduated mostly like with kids that were at least 3 months younger, 3 to 14 months younger than me. So all those things combined made it to where I was not going to fit in. I had no hope of ever fitting in, ever. Even if I could have faked being normal or feigned being normal, I still wouldn't have fit in because of my name. And so yeah, basically, I mean, I can't stand it when people like they transition and then they change their name to something totally different that it never would have or could have been. Something it doesn't even begin with the same letter as their birth name. It has nothing to do with their birth name. It's just a name that they liked and is usually ill-fitting because it seems too young for them. So yeah, like someone my age going by Caden or Jaden or Braden is kind of what I'm thinking, which I would never have done. Or even Aiden. I could never see myself with a little boy's name. So yeah, especially considering, that mine is kind of an old lady's name. So yeah, and oh, the other thing I want to talk about, before I conclude this video is just kind of the nature of, some of the things that may have offended people. Like some of my favorite episodes, I mean, every time it's like I'm either heavily involved with something or not at all. I'm either able to psychoanalyze all the characters and know episodes by name and, specific scenes within episodes and memorizing lines without even trying to do that. Or I couldn't care less about the show, the movie, or whatnot. There's really no middle ground, no in between. I don't just watch TV to have something making noise in the background, because as you well know, I'd much rather hear the train. So, this one of my favorite episodes, I always had favorite episodes anytime I got involved in watching a show. There would always be certain ones that would stick out as being my favorites, because they pertain to my three main, fetishes or paraphilias. And, like if there wasn't an episode where someone actually had a cold, like no one, like if there wasn't an episode where someone or my favorite characters were ever said to have a cold, then my favorite episodes would often be the ones where I could tell that their voice actor had a cold in real life. Like before there was All's Well That Pretends Well, on Rugrats, where Angelica gets a cold to whatever extent possible. There was episodes like the Thanksgiving turkey episode, the turkey that came to dinner or something like that, where they sounded like they had a cold, her and several others. And, just like various other things. And then, sometimes an episode would come along and be even more of what I liked, but I would still like, the ones I already liked before, if that makes any sense. Like Chucky Loses His Glasses and Ransom of Cynthia were my favorite episodes, before there ever was one where she had a cold. And so with Sofia the First, I mean, obviously, the main characters I don't think are ever said to have a cold. But there's two princesses and a baby where Cedric sneezes because of the dandelion. So obviously he doesn't have a cold, but he's sneezing. And then there's a few where the voice actors clearly sound like there'd been a cold going around the studio. And one of those was Tea for Too Many. They just sound kind of nasally, although it could be the microphone. And the other thing I like about Tea for Too Many is, just like clown around with Rugrats. There's a very deniable, like, fart, where basically Amber is threatening him. He doesn't want to perform at her tea party. And so basically he says, yes, I do what the king commands. And she's like, well, then I could tell Daddy, I mean the king. And whenever she says king, it's like, to me, it's a farting sound. But, there's just so many like that. It's like, there's so many episodes out there wherein it's like, you have characters whose bodily functions, for various reasons, whether they're female, whether they're too old, or, for whatever reason. I mean, that's most characters. You can't just be overt about bodily functions. But it's like you'll have something that clearly, could have been them farting. And sometimes, for me to draw attention to anything like that, just has always kind of offended the fan base. And so this is about 17 minutes in or so. Tea for too many. But yeah, that was one of my favorites because because they all sound kind of nasally. And because of that. And so yeah, it's like I would always have, certain ones that I like better than others for various reasons, no matter what show it was. And I always, these favorites tended to always be influenced by my three main obsessions, with those three bodily functions that I've talked about. And so, yeah, people can deny it. I mean, if they wanted to, I guess they could try to go back and change it or something, change the audio, but it still, would remain, in my mind, remembered the way that I remembered it. So, yeah. I mean, it's embarrassing that I care so much about those things. And, but I'm really enjoying, putting these thoughts into poetry and making that poetry into music. It's a very satisfying thing. And the thing I like about AI is it kind of craps on people's obsession with, characters have to be a certain way. Like I've stated several years ago, when characters become idols, AI kind of poops on people's expectation of that. This idea that, a character has to be represented the same way every single time. And then if something isn't said in the cartoon, then it cannot be true. You know what I'm saying? Like if they don't expressly come out and say that Angelica pooped herself, in the instance that I've been talking about for, well, it's going to be 5 years since I've been mentioning it, then it can't be true, which, I mean, that's about ridiculous, just like the thing about, Cedric couldn't have farted. I mean, it's just, I mean, if I see it that way and I experience it as having been that way, then, the fact that they're fictional means it doesn't really matter. I mean, some writer behind the show doesn't have to come out and tell me, when a fart sound is a fart sound, and, where it occurred and why it may have happened. Somebody doesn't have to come out and tell me that. The thing I love about AI is it kind of craps on that in the way that no two pictures will be exactly alike, and the same thing with songs. I mean, you could take those same lyrics, upload it, it'll generate one melody, and then you do it again, and it'll generate a different melody with a different voice. Same thing with images, One image, of my Veruca Salt Disney character had her with auburn hair and green eyes. Another one was like bright red hair and hazel eyes. Another one was red hair and blue eyes, and so on. And they even gave her a sixth finger in one image, which I couldn't fix it, so I just left it. But yeah, it's starting to, like, I love AI because it's like, it doesn't have to be as, they're not gods, and it's not a Bible, as to how it has to be, you know what I'm saying? And that if it wasn't stated that they had a cold when their voice actor clearly did in real life, then they didn't have a freaking cold. It's like, come on, people, these are not gods. So yeah, I go ahead and post this video and put it in the queue.